The Pokefami DX is an unlicensed Super Famicom clone produced in late 2011 by a company called GameJoy. Now, what exactly is an unlicensed Super Famicom clone? Basically, it's a machine built for the purpose of capitalizing on expired hardware patents. Essentially, since Nintendo is no longer producing Super Nintendos and Super Famicoms, but people are still playing games built for the machines over 20 years after they were originally released, small companies are building their own versions of the consoles and selling them for generally pretty cheaply. And as the saying goes, you get what you pay for. Now, I wouldn't normally consider buying a hardware clone, at least for the SNES, since they're so easy to get a hold of in great condition, and Nintendo's consoles are typically built to withstand nuclear fallout. But there's one thing this guy can do that this guy can't, and that's take the show on the road. So let's take a look at the Pokefami DX before we take it for a spin. Now, the Pokefami DX, despite having to be built large enough to be compatible with SNES and Super Famicom cartridges, is actually a pretty compact little device, unlike the Superboy, which is another portable SNES clone that's recently made its way to market. It's really comfortable to hold. The face and shoulder buttons feel about as good as you could hope for from an unlicensed clone, and the D-pad, which looks a little bloated, actually works really well with every type of game I've tried it with. It's also got a handy contrast button that doubles as a reset button if you hold it down for a few seconds. The battery is also pretty great. I've drained it down a couple of times and I've gotten an average of 6.5 hours of playtime out of it. Now, as great as the battery is, there is one really bad design choice here, and that is that there's absolutely no indication when your battery's about to die. There's this battery light here that it glows red when it's charging and green when it's done or when it's just playing off battery. But when your battery dies, your system just turns off completely. So you don't have any warning when you need to save your game or whatnot. So there's also the matter of the sound capabilities that I know you guys are all wondering about in wake of the horrible mistakes Hyperkin made with the Superboy. So I'm happy to say that the sound on the Pokefami DX is really very good. There's an ever so slight sound of electronic feedback that comes out of the speakers if you turn them up to the louder volumes the system is capable of, and the system can get pretty loud. But unlike the Superboy, I guarantee this is something that 99% of you are not going to even notice once you start playing, because the sound and music actually drowns it out. So, if you turn the volume up anywhere higher than, say, 25%, you're going to get really annoying horizontal lines all over the screen that pulse in time with the sound. And this isn't a sometimes thing. This is on every game, so if you look closely, you should be able to see those lines. Having said that, this is a portable device, and the whole point of it is to be able to play on the go. For me, that means on the train ride between home and work. And when I'm playing games on the train, I'm wearing headphones. And the great thing is, when you plug in headphones, this feedback problem goes away entirely. So you've got full, rich stereo sound pumping through your headphones along with a bright, warm screen that, while nowhere near as sharp as the screens on anything made by Nintendo or Sony, or Apple, or really anybody else, does a pretty nice job at rendering the SNES's graphics. The system does come with a couple of nice, if expected, pack-ins as well, besides the standard charging cable. First is a mini plug to composite cable, so you can hook the system up to a TV. Second is this nifty little adapter that lets you use either one or two real SNES controllers, which you can use whether or not this is hooked up to a TV. And the third is a little plastic display stand that I've actually already lost. So we know what it is, we've seen what it looks like, we know what its strengths and weaknesses are, but how does it compare to a real Super Nintendo? Now, clones are typically not the greatest when it comes to compatibility. Some games, through a combination of voodoo and clever engineering, know when they're being played on non-original hardware and refuse to boot up. Others will punish gamers for playing on clones by implementing some annoying and really just not very nice anti-piracy measures that make it impossible to finish the game. Usually, though, most games will boot up fine on SNES clones. So I've got about 15 games here that I'm going to test. Some of these are commonly complained about games like Earthbound, Mega Man X3, Kirby Superstar, etc. And I'm also going to test compatibility with a couple other random pieces of hardware. So without further ado, let's test some games. if I can engage in a battle here. This game, even without the visual feedback from the audio, which I'm avoiding right now by playing the sound through headphones, it still has some slight graphical problems during battle. So we'll see if we can capture that right now. Here it comes. Whoa. Whoa. Super Ghouls and Ghosts is actually the only game I've had any problems with on here. Just like with every other clone, as far as I know. This game works fine until you get to the boss of the 3rd level. And then you can't see the boss, and you basically can't finish the game. Should you buy the Pokefami DX? Well, that really depends on a few things. A, how tolerant you are of the shortcomings of Hyperkin's Superboy, which I'd love to get into, but Hyperkin's had my defective Superboy for almost a month with no indication that they're ever going to return it to me. Check out the classic gaming forums at digitpress.com for details there. B, or 2, how much you're willing to pay to import this without being able to rely on any sort of warranty. Mine cost about $130 and I'm stuck with a stuck pixel on the built-in screen. And see how patient you are, because in about 2 weeks a clone maker called Retrobit is coming out with a pretty awesome looking device called the Retro Duo Portable, or RDP, that, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure is almost an exact copy of the Pokefami DX. A clone of a clone, if you will. I'll have one of these in hand soon so I can make a more detailed comparison when that comes in. But if the RDP is just a rebranded Pokefami DX and you don't mind the form factor, I'd say it's probably a better bet to go with the RDP, which retails for about $89.99. Oh, and there's one more thing I forgot to mention. This guy can actually play NES, Famicom, Sega Genesis, and Mega Drive games with the use of certain cartridge adapters, which are essentially like the Super 8 hardware clones on a chip, so really they can be played on any device that can play SNES games. I was hoping to show the system running a couple of Genesis games today, but the adapter I purchased 2 weeks ago still hasn't made its way to my mailbox. Maybe that'll change before I'm done cobbling together 19 hours of footage for one 10-minute video, and if so, you'll be the first to know. So in conclusion, Yes, the Pokefami DX does have some slight issues with its screen, and the paint is probably not the highest quality, but it's miles above the currently available competition with regards to battery life, sound, and image quality, and the compatibility is pretty dang great too. If you're willing to pay the premium to import it, I say hell yes to the Pokefami DX. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll try to get back to you in the comments below or in the forums at digitpress.com. See you next time. Also, before I get inundated with comments about how a PSP with CFW can play ROMs, you guys let me know when you can get Yoshi's Island running at 30 FPS with full sound and no frame skips.